Hello, Monsoon117 here, and this will be a video about the top 5 web serials on Royal Road. So, the first question you should be asking, or you'll probably be asking, is what is a web serial? So, it is a story that is posted regularly on a schedule or a certain amount of words a week. It's posted for free and is posted online. Obviously, a column in a newspaper wouldn't constitute a web serial, for example. So, I have actually created a nifty little chart right here, and it goes through all the different stories: the game, A Goblin's Tale, the New World, the Wandering Inn, and Randidley Ghost Hound. Those are actually the top 5. So, on our first place, we have the game. So, the game makes $550 a month. So, not necessarily a small amount, but it'd be very difficult to actually live off of that if you have to pay your own rent and stuff like that. So, this is also only constitutes his Patreon account. So, if he has other sources of income that I don't know about, that donations and stuff like that, if they're quite regular, I don't know how to access that data. So, I'm going off of what I can access, which is Patreon. So, his story is pretty awesome. He has over 4,000 or 5,000 viewers, and it makes it so he has quite a few people to access with his monetization stuff. Not too successful, especially when compared to some of these other people. Next we have A Goblin's Tale. So you'll see that the bar he has, first off, is GIMP. It's pretty gimpy because I made it too short. So it was actually below 1,000, so I made it a little bit taller to sort of accentuate the differences that you're going to see between these two people. He has 1,042 as of the time of making this video. And one thing you'll notice about Clear Madness is that is a huge jump up, right at $500. So he's approaching double what the game has, and that has to do with discipline. See, Clear Madness has been posting, he's author of A Goblin's Tale, he's been posting regularly for a long time. And that consistency, that diligence, it pays off in the long run. That's the reason he's making so much more than the game, even though the game may be arguably, more compelling. You have a more compelling and engaging narrative. That's an argument for another day, though. Then you have my story, The New World. Boom, boom, boom. Anyway, it can't see my face anymore. It is sitting at 1368. As of the making of this video. So I'll just cleave off the top of those guys. So as you'll notice, from a visual diagram perspective, it's a pretty steady increase. $500 at first, then around $300, a little bit over $300 for the next video. It's a decently substantial increase, and that another thing you'll note is that the vast majority of the funds are actually allocated towards the very top of the spectrum. The top 4 stories make more than the next 20 bottom stories combined. And that's because they're using several strategies that are helping more. So I'm using some of them too, and I can show them to you guys because that's what I've been doing, and that's how I've been able to make it so successful so fast. But at 1368 is pretty decent. That puts me in 3rd place from what I could find. So this is by no means a comprehensive research analysis. So then we have, sitting at 1,741, boom, The Wandering Inn. So The Wandering Inn is a story that you guys might not have heard about. Pretty awesome. It is also a lit RPG, just like The New World and the first place spot. It only has around 1,700 followers, or 2,000. And that's a very small amount. So her monetization strategy has been enormously effective, especially whenever you compare it to someone like me, Clear Madness, the game. We have I have over twice as many followers as her, yet she still makes substantially more than me, and that's because she has her audience locked down. They are extremely engaged, and it's impressive. It's impressive that someone is able to engage their readers so effectively. So I have a lot to learn from her as an author too. I've read some of her work. It is excellent. Then you have number 1, right? The person who inspired my story. Let's see. You have Randidley Ghost Hound. So Randidley Ghost Hound is sitting at $1,860 or $1,859 as of the making of this video. He's making a lot of money, and he's very hard to catch up with. I'm trying to beat him, but it takes time. He's difficult to beat because he's constantly growing. And one thing that you'll note about these stories, the most successful ones are either A, very old stories that have been posting regularly for a very long time. That is what The Wandering Inn and A Goblin's Tale fall into. They both are, A Goblin's Tale is nearly 2 years old, and The Wandering Inn is almost a year old, which is old by web novel standards, especially considering how many pages she's written. It's like 4,000 or 5,000. Then you take the other kind of story is what I like to call a production story. So the Randiddly Ghost Town, he has been posting almost every day for months and months and months, and this puts him as the #1 most popular story on Roll Road. And what does this do that makes it different in its dynamics in comparison with the other top spots? It's that unlike A Goblin's Tale or The Wandering Inn, the Randiddly Ghost Town updates 2-3 times more frequently, and people come to it nearly every day expecting something. And that's awesome for several reasons, because it creates a sort of engagement that you just can't get out of a once-a-week story. So the daily release format is something I'm a huge fan of because it creates a level of engagement you can't replicate, using web serial format any other way. So a perfect example is the Arcane Emperor. Arcane Emperor, you would think, would bring home more money than these other stories, because some of these stories you've probably never heard of. But I know if you're watching this video and you've ever been to Royal Road, you've seen the Arcane Emperor, because that is a massive flagship of the entire website, just right up there with the Forgotten Conqueror, over twice as many followers as me. Yet he only makes around $340 off of his Patreon, and he hasn't published his novel. It begs the question, what's the difference? What are the actionable differences that these top stories, these web serials, are doing that make them more effective? Well, the easiest component is that the Arcane Emperor releases everything on one day. His chapters are utterly massive, which helps with engrossing yourself in this story, which helps reading, like if you're reading it all at once, but it doesn't actually change it into like a lifestyle or anything like that, which is quite problematic, because it basically makes it so that the readers aren't as willing to donate. Because if you're doing something every day, and you're enjoying something every day, it becomes a part of a routine, and you're willing to invest into those routines over time. A perfect example would be coffee. Now, if you've been drinking coffee for 3 months, you can handle just a normal everyday brewed coffee. But once you've done it for 6 or 7, you're much more likely to go to Starbucks or other coffee shops to try and get some good variation of coffee. You'll start investing more into creamers, specific kinds of milk, flavorings, all kinds of stuff. Those are the type people that you're going to have to develop in your story, because you can't have people that are just like, it's all right, I'll just read it every now and again. You have to have someone who's in it to win it every day. At least that's what I've seen has been effective. And it worked great for Randiddly Ghost Town. He, over the course of 6 months, has almost created twice the overall level of monetization as Clear Madness has, although Clear Madness has also published his, so that kind of evens the playing field a good bit. But regardless, it's an interesting little analysis to see how these stories compare with one another, and to see that there are not that many stories that are able to monetize effectively. So, the last note though, before I close out the video, something you'll notice about these stories is that the older ones, almost all of the old stories, these are some of the oldest stories in Roll Road who have consistently updated their stories for prolonged periods of time. And the reason is they are able to sustain themselves. The authors aren't having to go out of their way, work 40-hour work weeks with no compensation over and over and over again. That's unsustainable. I know a lot of people in Roll Road complain and essentially bitch about stories that are incomplete or dropped, but then they themselves wouldn't be willing to pay $5 a month to help sustain an author, because you need food. I need food, Clear Madness needs food. Authors in general, they need shelter, rent, stuff like that. They need to be able to afford living expenses. And while that may require the a reader to bite the bullet to be able to see whatever their favorite story has come to fruition. You don't have to do it with every single story. If every reader on Roll Road did it for the top 3 stories, $5 a month, $15 a month, and everyone did that, there'd be dozens of stories, a rich mix of different genres that were all just working with these old stories that are excellent and just really engaging. That could happen. It's just most people on Roll Road either A, don't know how to monetize, that's the author's fault, or B, the people on Roll Road tend to be pretty stingy. So the requirements may be a little bit stiff, a little bit steep for story creation. So they might be demanding a little bit too much of the author without, offering up enough in return. Just food for thought. So this is Monsoon 17. Hope you guys enjoyed the video.